Growing up, science was our family's bread and butter. Both of my parents were scientists, and as a kid, you could say I got the bug real bad. From chemistry sets in the garage to science fairs that felt more like the Super Bowl at our house, I was neck deep in it. I remember thinking even back then, I'm gonna make something big one day. High school was a breeze, just straight A's across the board, not to boast. Then came college, where I really dug my heels into chemical sciences. It wasn't just about getting good grades, it was about finding that one thing I could add to the world. And by the time graduation rolled around, I had a pretty clear shot in mind. I was going to tackle obesity. It's not just about looks, it's health, and man, does it matter. Landing a gig at Janssen Pharmaceuticals right out of uni was like hitting the jackpot. They were the big leagues of pharmaceutical development, and their new project? Anti-obesity drugs. Talk about right up my alley. I joined a team that was as geeked out about making a difference as I was. Day in, day out, we were mixing, testing, failing, and trying again. It's the grind, but when you love it, it's the good kind of grind. About 6 years in, things took a turn. Janssen absorbed this smaller competitor, and suddenly, we had a flood of new faces around. One of them was Tom Bennett. Young guy, sharp as a tack, with a smile that could sell sand in the desert. He was assigned as my assistant, and let me tell you, he caught on quick. "Marianne, how about we run the synthesis with a lower solvent ratio today?" Tom would say, diving right into the thick of it. I'd shoot back. "You sure that'll speed things up? Don't waste my time if you ain't." He'd just grin. "Trust me, I've crunched the numbers." And I'll be damned, he was usually right. Working together was easy, like we'd been doing it for years. He had this way of making 12-hour shifts feel like a breeze. Before I knew it, a year had flown by, and our professional respect turned into something more. It wasn't just the late nights in the lab or the quick coffee breaks that did it. I actually fell for him, hard. One chilly November evening, as we were locking up the lab, Tom caught me by surprise. "Marianne, I've been thinking," he started, looking a bit more serious than usual. "Yeah? Don't hurt yourself," I joked, trying to lighten the mood. He chuckled, then got quiet for a second. "How about we make this team a permanent deal? Not just here, I mean." It took me a second, but then it hit me. He wasn't just talking shop. He was talking marriage. "Are you for real?" I asked, my voice a mix of shock and a little hint of excitement. "As a heart attack," he said, pulling out a small box from his coat. The rest was a blur of yes, kisses, and calling everyone we knew. We got married the following spring. Work was great, marriage was even better, and it seemed like nothing could go wrong. But as I'd come to find out, life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. After Tom and I tied the knot, it felt like we were on top of the world. Work was buzzing, our project was gaining traction, and at home, things couldn't have been sweeter. Life was good, and I wasn't taking any of it for granted. Tom had really settled into his role at Janssen Pharmaceuticals. Every day, he was coming up with fresh ideas, and man, did he have a knack for the technical side. It was like he had a sixth sense for what would work and what wouldn't. I still ran the show, but having him as my right-hand man made all the difference. One morning, as we drove to work together, Tom turned to me and said, "And, you ever think about how far we could take this project? I mean, we're onto something big." I kept my eyes on the road, but nodded. "Yeah, of course. We're gonna change lives, Tom. That's the plan." He laughed. "Yeah, but I mean really big. This could be our ticket to the top." I shot him a look. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, we need a solid product." The conversation dropped as we got into the daily grind, but I could tell Tom was getting more ambitious. Not that ambition is bad, but in the science world, you gotta keep your feet on the ground. Our breakthrough felt close, and we were testing and retesting, tweaking and refining. The lab was our second home, and I didn't mind one bit. Tom and I, we were a team in every sense of the word, tackling each challenge head-on. I remember one meeting with the higher-ups where they were buzzing about efficiency and synergy and all that corporate speak. "Carson, we're expecting big things from your team," the director said, eyeing me across the table. I leaned forward, hands clasped. "We won't disappoint. We're on the verge of something game-changing." Tom chimed in, "Absolutely. We've got a few ideas that could really speed up development." I gave him a quick look. We hadn't talked about speeding things up. Later, in the lab, I pulled him aside. "Hey, what's with the rush talk back there? You know we can't cut corners." Tom shrugged, his usual easy grin in place. "And we gotta strike while the iron's hot. We can handle it." I frowned. "It's not about handling it, Tom. It's about doing it right. We rush this, and we risk everything, our reputations included." He put his hands up in a mock surrender. "All right, boss, we'll do it your way. Slow and steady." I wasn't trying to be the bad guy, but in this line of work, precision isn't just a fancy word, it's everything. Still, I could tell Tom was getting impatient. He wanted results, and he wanted them yesterday. As the weeks rolled by, our project moved closer to the finish line. The higher-ups were breathing down our necks for updates, and the pressure was mounting. It was one of those make-or-break moments, and I knew we had to keep our heads down and push through. By now, Tom and I were thick as thieves in the lab. It wasn't just about working side by side, we were in sync, pushing each other to think bigger and dig deeper. The stakes were high, and so were our spirits. It felt like every day we were edging closer to that big breakthrough we'd been chasing. One brisk morning, as we reviewed the latest test results, Tom let out a low whistle. "Look at this, Anne. These numbers are off the charts. We're onto something." I leaned over the graph, tracing the line with my finger. "Yeah, but we're not there yet. I think we need to up the dosage, see how it scales." Tom rubbed his chin, his eyes never leaving the data. "I don't know. I was thinking, what if we switch to a tablet form? Easier for the market, right?" I paused, considering. It wasn't a bad idea, but it felt rushed. Tablets? That could complicate things. More variables, more tests. We need to nail the basics first. He shrugged, a bit too casually. "Maybe, but think about it. It's worth a shot, isn't it?" I frowned. "It's not about just trying things, Tom. Every change means more time, more money. We gotta be sure." He leaned back against the counter, crossing his arms. "Look, and we're close. I can feel it. Let's just push a bit, yeah?" I shook my head. "It's not about feeling, Tom. It's science. We go by the data, not gut feelings." The conversation hung between us, a rare tension knotting the air. I could tell he was frustrated, maybe even a bit annoyed with my caution. But this was how it had to be. Precision over speed, always. As the weeks rolled on, we kept at it, hammering out the kinks, refining our approach. Tom seemed to settle down, getting back in line with the plan. But every now and then, I'd catch him scribbling notes about the tablet formulation, his mind churning on a track of its own. Despite our disagreements, working with Tom brought out the best in me. He challenged me, made me think differently. And even when it was tough, I knew it was worth it. We were building something important together, something that could one day change lives. Our preliminary studies showed the drug really was effective. The numbers didn't lie, and for a moment, the excitement was palpable between us. But as always, the real work was just beginning. Now we needed to dive into identifying possible adverse reactions, a lengthy and crucial phase. Tom, ever the optimist, was quick to jump the gun. "And we should tell the bosses now. Think about the markets, the profits. We're sitting on a gold mine." I stopped him right there, my voice firm. "Tom, it's not about the money. It's people's health we're dealing with, our company's reputation. We can't rush this out just to cash in." He seemed to take that in, nodding slowly. "You're right, Anne. Sorry, got ahead of myself there." So, I pressed on with the research, steadfast in my belief that doing things right was the only way. Tom appeared to agree, and together, we moved forward, cautious, but hopeful. 2 months later, Tom left for a scientific conference abroad. The air in our home felt different, like waiting for a storm to break. He'd been gone longer than usual, and every day that passed added more weight to my unease. The day he finally came back, I was setting the table for dinner, trying to push down the nagging feeling in my gut. The moment he walked through the door, I knew. It wasn't just the way he didn't bother to take off his coat or the way he avoided my eyes. It was something colder, a distance that wasn't just about the physical miles he'd traveled. "Tom, you're back," I started, stepping towards him with a tentative smile. "Dinner's almost ready." I made. He cut me off, his voice sharp, eyes hard. "Don't bother. I'm not staying." His words stopped me mid-step. "What are you talking about? You just got home." He didn't move to kiss me like he usually would. Instead, he just stared, his look chilling. "Listen, Marianne. I'm a millionaire now. And I don't need you or this pathetic life anymore." I froze, the room spinning slightly. "Millionaire? Tom, what are you talking about?" With a sneer, he dropped the bombshell. "I patented the new formula, our weight loss medication. It's all mine. I sold it. I'm set for life, going to enjoy luxury and fame. And you?" He laughed cruelly. "You're just a loser. Always were." It felt like a slap, each word a blow to my heart and my mind racing to catch up with his betrayal. "But we worked on that together, Tom. You can't just steal it and sell it." His laugh was bitter, filled with disdain. "I just did. And there's nothing you can do about it. You're nothing without me. Stupid, ugly. I couldn't stand being in the same bed as you." Before I could even process the full extent of his cruelty, he threw a stack of papers at me. Divorce papers that hit my chest before scattering across the floor. He didn't flinch, just twisted the knife deeper. "Consider this the last gift from me to you." Then, without another word, he turned and walked out, the finality in his steps echoing through the now too quiet house. I collapsed onto the sofa, the papers around me like fallen leaves in the wake of a hurricane. Tears blurred my vision, sobs shaking my body as the night grew darker around me. He had taken everything, our work, our dreams, even our love, and turned them into weapons against me. All night, the tears wouldn't stop. They poured out, carrying with them the pain of betrayal and the shards of a broken heart. By morning, my eyes were swollen from crying, my spirit as hollow as the home we once shared. Walking into the lab that morning was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. My eyes were swollen from crying all night, my head pounded like a drum, but I had to keep going. No matter how much I just wanted to curl up and hide from the world, I had a job to do, responsibilities that wouldn't wait for my personal life to sort itself out. I hadn't been at my desk for more than a minute when I got the call to head up to the director's office. My stomach churned with dread as I made my way there, knowing this wasn't going to be a pleasant chat. As soon as I stepped into his office, the director let loose. "Marianne, what the hell happened? Tom sold our research to a competitor overseas. This is a disaster. You've let us all down." I stood there, taking the heat, feeling every word like a physical slap. But I wasn't about to let him lay all this at my feet. "Hold on a minute. It was you who decided to hire Tom in the first place. You brought him into this company. If anyone's to blame for not seeing through him, it's not just me." The director looked like I'd slapped him back. He stopped pacing and stared at me, his anger shifting to something else, maybe realization, maybe fear. This could bankrupt us, Marianne. Do you understand? Our entire company's at stake here." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my own panic in check. "I know, I understand the stakes. But yelling isn't going to fix anything. We need to think about what to do next." The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife, but it felt like he was finally listening to me. "What do you suggest then?" "The drug isn't ready for market. Tom might have stolen the formula, but it needs more work. It's not safe yet, I explained, trying to bring some reason into the conversation. And besides, what Tom did, stealing our research, that's a criminal offense. We can fight this. The director sat down heavily, his face in his hands. After a moment, he looked up at me, worn out. Okay. What do you need from me? I need time, I said firmly. Give me 6 months to review everything, to refine the formula. Make it better. And you? I paused, making sure he understood the gravity. You handle the legal side. Go after Tom, get our data back, whatever it takes. He nodded slowly, the fight gone out of him. All right. You have your 6 months, Marianne. But this better work. It's more than just jobs on the line now. I nodded, feeling the weight of the entire company on my shoulders as I left his office and went back to my lab. The place that had once been a sanctuary of discovery and progress now felt more like a battlefield. For the next several months, I threw myself into my work with a kind of desperate intensity. Every test, every trial was double-checked, every result scrutinized more harshly than ever before. I was racing against time, against the potential collapse of everything I had worked for. My focus had been on tweaking the drug's delivery system. The tablet form, Tom's chosen method, which he had sold off so recklessly, was showing dangerously strong adverse reactions in the gastrointestinal tract. This was a big red flag, and deep down, I thanked my cautious nature for insisting on thorough testing. It didn't take long to decide on switching to an injectable form. The change required reconfiguring the drug's molecular structure slightly, ensuring it was stable and effective when administered directly into the bloodstream. The lab was tense with anticipation as we ran the new series of tests. The results? Better than I had dared hope. The injectable version showed minimal side effects and maintained its efficacy in reducing obesity. It was a stark contrast to the hazardous pills Tom had pushed out. Documenting every test result meticulously, I built an irrefutable case to present to the director. This wasn't just about science, it was about integrity, about proving that cutting corners was no way to make advancements in medicine. Walking into the director's office, my steps were heavy with exhaustion, but steady with conviction. I've got something you need to see, I said, laying out the documents on his desk, the graphs and data painting a clear picture of our new success compared to the dismal failure of the pill. The director studied the documents, his eyes widening with each page he turned. When he finally looked up, there was a mix of astonishment and relief in his eyes. This is incredible, Marianne. You've not only salvaged the project, but turned it around completely. I told you I would fix this, I said, a small smile breaking through the fatigue. The injectable works. It's safe, effective, and ready to move forward. He got up from his chair and, to my surprise, hugged me. It was a moment of pure joy, shared between two people who had seen the depths of despair and were now glimpsing the first light of dawn. As we stepped back, a more somber mood reclaimed the room. What about Tom? He asked, his voice hardening. We can't let him get away with what he's done. I nodded, my mind already turning over the possibilities. I have an idea, I started, leaning closer. It's risky, but it might just work. We expose him, not just in court, but publicly. Show everyone what he's really about. The director paused, considering the ramifications. Then, a slow, sly smile spread across his face. Draw it up. I want every detail planned out. If we're doing this, we're making sure it sticks. Together, we brainstormed, mapping out a strategy that would not only bring Tom to justice but also clear our company's name and restore the faith in our research. It was more than a plan, it was a mission, a way to right a wrong that had shaken us to our core. Today was the presentation of the anti-obesity drug that Tom had claimed as his own creation. The event was held in a grand auditorium, swarming with investors, media, and industry experts. I entered the hall alongside the director, my stomach churning with nerves and determination. As we made our way to our seats, I caught sight of Tom. Beside him was a young model-type woman, her hand on his arm, smiling up at him as if he was her hero. Tom noticed me then, his eyes locking onto mine as he smirked and leaned down to whisper something to his companion. "That's my bride-to-be," he announced loudly enough for nearby attendees to hear. "Only the most beautiful things for a man of my talents. Marianne was always too simple for my tastes." His voice dripped with disdain. I felt the sting of his words, but I kept my composure, walking past without giving him the satisfaction of seeing any reaction. The presentation began with a round of applause as Tom took the stage, soaking in the adulation with a grin. "Thank you, everyone, for joining me on this monumental day," he started, his voice booming across the room. "It's been years of hard work and sleepless nights, but finally, my efforts have paid off. Finally," he gestured grandly towards the screen. "And now, let's see the future of weight management." But instead of the glossy promotional video everyone expected, the screen flickered and changed. Giant letters declaring the real story behind the breakthrough flashed across. The crowd gasped, turning in their seats, murmurs filling the air. Tom's face went white as he spun around to read the screen, his confident facade crumbling. The next slide showed video clips of him in the lab, clearly in a secondary role, with me leading the work. Documents and emails followed, detailing his theft and the dangers of the rushed pill formula he had been pushing to market. Tom frantically pressed buttons on the control panel, trying to stop the presentation, but instead, more condemning evidence spilled out. I stood and made my way to the stage. The murmurs grew louder, but I raised my hand, calling for silence. "Ladies and gentlemen, please, let me explain," I said, my voice carrying across the now silent auditorium. "I am Marianne Carson, the real brain behind the project Tom claimed as his own. What you've seen today is the truth about the man who stands before you. The drug he has been promoting is not only ineffective but dangerous." I paused, letting my words sink in, seeing the realization dawn on many faces around the room. "I've continued the research, legally and ethically, to develop a safe and effective product. Our company values integrity and the health of our customers above all. Soon, we will introduce a product to the market that you can trust completely." The applause that followed was thunderous, a stark contrast to the looks of disgust directed at Tom. After the uproar at the presentation, everything moved at a breakneck pace. Tom's face as he was led away by the police will forever be etched in my memory, his confidence shattered, his future uncertain. His young companion, the model who had been clinging to his arm earlier, delivered a stinging slap across his face before storming out of the hall. The representatives from the foreign company that had partnered with Tom hurried out, avoiding the eyes of the journalists who swarmed like vultures, eager for a sensational story. As the commotion settled, the director approached me, his eyes wide with relief and gratitude. He wrapped me in a quick, firm hug, the kind that said more than words ever could. "You did it, Marianne. You saved us all," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "We did it, together," I corrected him softly, aware of the many contributions from our team. The consequences of Tom's actions were swift and severe. Our company filed a lawsuit against him for stealing the medicinal formula and for the layers of fraud he had woven around his actions. The court didn't go easy on him. He was convicted on multiple counts, facing not only a substantial prison term but also a crippling financial future. The foreign company he had deceived filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against him, ensuring that any dreams he had of a lavish life were dashed. Meanwhile, back at the lab, I continued my work on the anti-obesity drug, driven by a renewed sense of purpose. The formula needed to be perfect, safe, and effective. And it was. After rigorous testing and refinement, we succeeded in developing a drug that could truly make a difference in people's lives without risking their health. The director was true to his word. In recognition of my efforts and the pivotal role I played in not just salvaging the project but also protecting the company's integrity, I received a significant bonus. It was more than just a financial reward, it was a token of trust and appreciation. With that bonus, I did something I had dreamed of since I was a little girl staring up at the stars outside my childhood home. I bought a house. Not just any house, but a beautiful, spacious home with a garden where I could plant flowers and a backyard big enough for a dog. As I unpacked a box, placing books on a shelf by the window, I thought about the road ahead. There were still challenges to face, new projects to embark on, and a world out there that needed the kind of change only dedicated science could bring. Tom had tried to destroy my life, my reputation, and my future. Instead, he unwittingly forged me into someone who could withstand the heat of betrayal and emerge, not just surviving, but thriving.